Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and boy do we ever have one of the absolute most impressive dinosaur models I have ever seen in my entire life to take a look at today, because we have the Era Terra resin fauna Patagotitan, and man, is this thing ever insane. The model itself is absolutely massive. Being a Patagotitan, of course, you're going to expect it to be massive. Specifically, it is a Patagotitan in 1/35th scale, which should give you a pretty good idea as far as how large this model is, but honestly, it is easily one of the most impressive looking models here in person. You talk about a model having a presence to it. This is undoubtedly a model that would draw in the eyes of anybody that enters your room, your collection room, but man, this thing honestly is too incredible for words. The only way to really show you how amazing it truly is, I think, at this point, is with a closer look, so we are just going to go ahead and jump straight to it. So, starting up here at the head sculpt of our massive Patagotitan, you can see we have some really nice, very impressive looking skin texture, as well as impressive looking paintwork. The model, again, you can see just the head alone is pretty darn big, but you can see that once we get nice and close, you have all sorts of variation of scale, detail, and skin texture moving through, as well as quite a bit of coloration here in the face. You can see some really nice orangish tones. You can even see some hints of greens. You've got like some off-whites here, a little bit of a darker tone of like an orange up there, some more off-whites on the lower jaw, and again, a really nice wash that has been applied to kind of tie it all together perfectly. You can also see the eye is painted really nicely. It's got a very nice gloss coat to it as well, so it shines quite realistically overall, but definitely, again, bringing the model to life further with how nice and realistic the eye is. You can also see the ears sculpted out back there, as well as the nostrils up here on the snout of our Patagotitan. The mouth is sculpted in an open position, which you can see the teeth there on the inside of the mouth, and he's done a really good job of bringing the dinosaur to life even on the inside of the mouth. Again, the teeth are sculpted beautifully, but they're also painted in a very realistic way. They sport a nice kind of a shine like teeth would, so tons and tons of realism on this one everywhere you look. It is a little hard to get in there because the mouth, of course, like the jaw, is not articulated, so you can't really get in there or anything any more so than what we've got going on here. But it does look really good, and there's also a tongue sculpted in there. It's a little hard to kind of see it right there. A little hard to get in there and turn it so that we can position it in a nice way to see that. But I can assure you, again, everything is painted and sculpted beautifully there on the inside of the mouth as well. But as you continue to lead along through the course of the dinosaur, you start to pick up this nice dark patterning that sort of stripes and designs as you move through the course of the Patagotitan. And you also have these very large sort of ridges that move along the back of the dinosaur as you move down here. And one thing that's really cool as far as the coloration goes, you see as these ridges move along, you kind of have that darker tone stripe out from the ridges there on the back. It's like very large scoots, I would say, moving down along the back of the dinosaur, and they kind of run down here. And not only do they run down, but there's also a row here moving along the side of the neck, and that dark tone kind of runs down and meets up with those as well, sort of tying all of those very large scoots together, and it looks really neat. Again, you have absolutely exceptional paintwork as you move through. You can see that even the orangish tones sport a little bit of variation of color. You can definitely see some difference to the coloration there as far as the tones of color used. It almost looks like we even have some reddish tones included in there. But as we continue to move down here through the course of the neck, you start to see the coloration transition. Rather than staying with the orange, we start to turn toward a green, and that looks really cool as well. Again, definitely giving the head and neck, the upper part of the neck, a little flashiness to it as you move through. You can see a nice light tone here on the underside of the neck and throat as well. You've got some nice skin wrinkles here in the neck moving down, showing a little bit of a turn to the neck of the Patagotitan. As you continue to move down, we obviously see the neck grow in size. It becomes thicker and thicker, but you can now see that we are pretty much overtaken with that greenish tone. We continue to still have that really cool patterning moving down, and again that light tone moving along the underside, and you can really see again that he has added quite a bit of depth to the paint job using washes and stuff to just, add a little more life to the paint job, a little more realism. As we keep moving down further and further into the neck of the dinosaur, you continue to see again it get larger and larger. You have a lot of tensing and everything here in the neck, and again some really nice kind of like skin wrinkles and stuff. As you move down here to the underside of the neck, you again have the sort of osteoderms or scutes, however you'd like to term them, moving down through the course of the body here of the neck, and again that really nice patterning kind of meshing with it. You can also see we have a darker green moving along the upper side of the dinosaur, and it does transition to a nice lighter green as you lead down here into the side of the Patagotitan. As you move down, you will see a seam right here in the neck because this model is so huge you actually have to screw the neck and tail into the model, so there is a very small seam, but once you take a step back, you really don't notice that. And again, it does not in any way, shape, or form take away from the absolute magic that is this massive Patagotitan. As you continue to move along, though, you can see that the skin texture has increased in size quite drastically. We have very large scales now moving down into the body. Again, a lot of variation to the scales as well, and probably some of the most impressive skin texture I've ever seen on a sauropod. I can assure you that if you decide to purchase this model, you are going to have the best sauropod in your collection. I can't think of anything that can really compete with this as far as the overall presence that it has on the shelf or on your table or desk or wherever you want to put it. But as you move down, you can see the shoulder blade here, again protruding from the skin a little bit. As you continue to move down, you can see some really nice skin wrinkles here leading off of the stomach here with the movement of the legs shown very nicely. You can also see some tensing to that leg again as the dinosaur is, moving along. You could see some really nice muscle definition as you move down through the course of the leg. Again, some more skin wrinkles here leading off of the stomach here into that leg. You have a little bit more of that patterning as it moves down, and then it kind of transitions away, and then we're basically left with those really nice greens, but you can see there is a nice dark wash applied as well to really highlight all of the cracks and crevices of the skin texture as you lead down through the course of that front leg down into that really nice foot that we have for our Patagotitan. And then as you move back up, you can see that we do have that light tone of the underbelly here present that leads kind of up into the stomach region a little bit. You can also see some pretty significant girth to the stomach region of the Patagotitan as well, so definitely a very nice well-fed dinosaur, and considering its size, I'm not surprised. But you can see leading up, we still have more of those patterns kind of striping down here and moving through the course of the stomach. But we do transition super smoothly up here to the greens in the back. You can see again we're now given more of those scutes on top of the row on the top, and then that row that was kind of following along, you now have a row here and then a little row here, so they do increase as far as the amount on the body as you move along. As you lead back here, you can see the hip bone here is nicely protruding from the skin, and again, very impressive skin texture as you move through. This model absolutely has some of the most impressive skin texture I have ever seen on a dinosaur model. You have nice muscle definition moving down. You can kind of see how the skin is wrinkling there in the stomach with the rear leg kind of pushing into it as well. More of that patterning moving down again. As you lead down here, you can see the kneecap of the leg and then the nice big bulging calf muscle back there. And then you lead down into the foot sculpt and you've got some really nicely sculpted toes. Again, nicely sculpted and painted nails. The nails have a nice glossy look. And again, you can really see how impressive the actual scale detail and skin texture is there in the toes. And they've done a great job again of bringing it all out with a really nice wash. And then as you move back up again, here's that little area where you have to screw the tail in, so you do see that small seam right there. But then as you lead out here into the tail, you can continue to see that we have that same style, that same pattern as we move through again with the dark tones sort of connecting all of those scutes, moving through again the really nice vibrant greens and the lighter tone of the underside again with all the skin wrinkles. But then as you lead out here into the tail, just like we started with the head, we start to transition back to an orange. And I think that as well looks really cool. Again, we keep that pattern as we move through, that patterning of the darker tone, but we now transition to an orange as we lead out. And then we've got, of course, a really nice long tail with a very, very sharp tip to it, which shows you how good they are at packing their dinosaurs and shipping them, because a tail with that sort of a tip you would think would easily break in transit. But this came a long way to me and stayed totally safe the entire time. But you can see again a nice curve to the tail as well as you move through. The underside of the dinosaur also sports again some very impressive skin texture and scale detail moving through. I'm very worried about moving this past this Nanmu Mosasaurus I have over here to the side, because the neck is so long I don't want to hit it. But you can see all of the skin texture and everything here on the underside looks great. You can see variation of color. I almost look like, I can kind of almost like make out pinkish tones here moving along the underside of the dinosaur as well. So extremely impressive in every aspect. And then if we turn the model around and we take a look at the opposing side of the head and face, you can see everything looks just like it did on the initial side, except now it's kind of facing away from us a little bit. But as we move back here into the neck, you can see again the coloration start to change. We start to have kind of like little hints of the green showing up in a few spots as it begins to kind of overtake the body. I really like that. I think that's a really cool little touch when it comes to the paintwork that I actually didn't notice before, how it's just sort of popping up in a few little areas as we begin to transition away from that orange and then we overtake the body with that greenish tone. The transition down is incredibly lifelike and smooth as well. But you're not going to see a whole lot of difference as you move through the body on this side compared to what we had seen on the first side, because the neck isn't in any kind of like a major drastic turn. You can see definitely a little bit of a turn to the neck, but it's not anything too crazy that it's going to have a major difference visually here on this side compared to the other side. Same deal with the legs, except the leg is definitely in a little bit of a different position. As you can see, the dinosaur is walking along, so the front legs are positioned a little differently compared to the initial side, but not anything that's too crazy that's going to give us a very large difference in the appearance from one side to the other, except for over here you can see how the skin is kind of stretching here off of the stomach region because the leg is trailing a little bit, so that side definitely does a little bit of a different visual to the skin texture and the way that it looks leading off of the stomach, since the other side was kind of pushing into the stomach, whereas here it's kind of like, you know, pulling the skin. But again, you see the nice patterning, and then we of course move out here through the course of the tail as we transition again to that really cool orange with the very nice patterning. And then you've also got a really nice base to go with the model, just to kind of top it all off and give you an entire scene taking place with your Patagotitan. And I must say that the base itself is sculpted and painted as beautifully as the dinosaur. So you can see there's no laziness when it comes to an Era Terra model. They make sure to go above and beyond to give you the most realistic depiction of the dinosaur, the most up-to-date as well, as far as I'm aware, and also, again, just the most lifelike appearance to the scene taking place. You can see the sculpting and detailing to the actual texturing of the earth is incredible. There's all sorts of cracks and crevices to the sort of like dried ground that we have here. Like, it looks almost like a dried up riverbed sort of here. It's like all cracked and, you know, everything as you move through, which again just adds a really nice dose of realism. But you can see the paintwork looks great, and of course you also have some downed logs over here, which those as well are really well done when it comes to both the sculpt and paint. You can also see that there is vegetation as you move through, a few different plants. We've also got some rocks and stuff showing up here and there as you continue to move through the course of the base. And again, it all has the appearance of a very prehistoric sort of an area where our dinosaur, of course, would be inhabiting, and the paintwork of the plants as well is really well done. Very careful, very precise paintwork. You can see the footprints for the dinosaur as it's walking through, and of course you just slide the feet of the dinosaur into the base and it stands there perfectly. And you also have the nameplate here on the side, which I absolutely love. I think that is just like the icing on the cake for the model, is having the nameplate over here on the side. And I believe if you turn it around, yes, you absolutely have the nameplate on both sides. So if you favor one side over the other, you can display it from either side, which is really cool. You don't often get that because normally the nameplate will be on one side specifically, and you're just kind of forced to, you know, have it on that side, whereas Era Terra gives you the opportunity to kind of display it from either side, whichever one you choose. And then you also have a nice soft underside to the model as well to make sure that it stays nice and safe on your table. So, an amazing base to go with one of the absolute most incredible dinosaur models I've ever seen. And the model is just so impressively massive. You can see I really have to move back pretty far to even attempt to get most of the model in screen here, which you can very clearly see. I have not succeeded in doing that because the tail still remains outside of the screen here. I don't know if I could even move it over enough to really get it all in screen. Almost. I feel like that's probably the closest we are going to get. As far as a size, though, this is going to be a little tricky considering how huge it is. I think we're going to have to get very close to the model to get that measurement. We're looking at about 35 inches, maybe like 35 and a quarter, or around 89.5 centimeters. Now, that is not an absolutely perfect measurement because the dinosaur is in sort of an awkward position where the head's sort of turned away from me right now and the tail's turning this way, so it's hard to really get it to sit on a certain spot. But that's like a rough length for our Patagotitan. But then as far as a height goes, this as well is going to be a little tricky. Not the best positioning for you guys right now, but for a height, I would say it's just about 16 inches or right around 41 centimeters, maybe a little over, actually more like approaching 41.5 centimeters, or a little bit over 16 inches. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collectae human being here next to our absolutely gigantic Patagotitan from Era Terra, and you can see very clearly that nothing here next to it even remotely compares size-wise with this massive beast. As I said, easily one of the most impressive dinosaur models I've ever seen, and I feel like this comparison right here really hammers that fact directly into place. We've also got a Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus, yet again, not even remotely comparing with this insanely large sauropod, as well as a few more randoms as we have the Schleich Diabloceratops, the Collectae Deluxe Dimetrodon, and Safari Ltd U Tyrannus next to our Era Terra Patagotitan, again showing that it is gigantic. We then have the older Safari Ltd Brachiosaurus here next to the Patagotitan for yet another comparison, this time again a sauropod comparison. But I feel like this comparison right here is probably one of the most impressive I can give you, because the Papo Brachiosaurus is probably one of the most popular sauropod figures of all time. When it comes to a model like this, you know, it's definitely one that most people probably have in their collection because it's one of the most impressive sauropods that were released a long time ago. So it is, you know, that one figure that a lot of people were like, wow, I really want to have that one in my collection. Now, there's a lot to choose from, but I think, again, seeing that Brachiosaurus next to this Patagotitan obviously shows you such a massive difference in quality. The Patagotitan is obviously far better quality than the Papo Brachiosaurus, but it also shows you just how massive this model is yet again. It is just an absolutely gigantic work of art. We also have the Howlong Good Ampulosaurus here next to the Patagotitan, again showing you it is still reigning supreme as one of the largest sauropods in my collection. And then for one final comparison, again another sauropod comparison, we have the Safari Ltd version of their Diplodocus that they had released, you know, again showing you that this thing is massive. You know, we could do this all day long, keep bringing in sauropods, showing you continuously that this is huge, but at this point, I think it's a safe bet that no sauropod figure that I bring in, unless it's like a Hammond collection or some sort of Mattel Brachiosaurus or maybe the Definitely Dinosaurs Ultrasaurus, nothing is really going to compete with this as far as a size goes. Also, another thing that is pretty fun about this is the fact that they include this really cool little card that shows off all sorts of information and of course has the Era Terra logo right there. But it gives you all kinds of info that you might want to know about not only the dinosaur, but the model itself. And what's cool is, as you can see here on the back, it says adhesive paper. So you could pull this off and make like a little plaque to put next to the Patagotitan model just to kind of, again, give you even more of a museum quality display. So this Era Terra resin fauna Patagotitan is absolutely unreal in person. When you talk about impressive dinosaur models. If we go back through time and look at the sauropods that have been released over time, at least when it comes to the ones that I've reviewed on my channel, it's very few and far between when one can compete with how impressive this is. And honestly, I don't know that any really can. This thing is incredible to look at in person. The sculpt is as lifelike and realistic as it could possibly get when it comes to a dinosaur model. Every ounce of detail is accounted for on the sculpt. The movement is shown off so perfectly. The muscle definition is shown off so perfectly. Tensing, considering the positioning of the legs and the way that they're standing depends on the way that the muscles are flexing, and the way that the legs are positioned would depend on the way that the skin is either stretching or creasing in certain ways. There's just so much fine detail and realism to this as you move through the course of the model that it truly is a wonder to behold in person. On top of that, the skin texture is incredible. It's probably some of the best, most realistic looking skin texture I've ever seen on a sauropod model. It looks exactly like what I would expect the skin texture of a sauropod to look like, and there is a lot that went into the sculpting of this. So honestly, I say Era Terra needs a round of applause for how impressive this is. On top of that, you have a really nice paint scheme for this, but what is cool about ordering from Era Terra is they have a ton of different paint schemes you can choose from. This is just the one that I have on mine, but there are so many different versions of paint schemes, including he will actually paint it up whatever way you want. If you have your own personal preference as to how you would like to see the model painted, he can do that. So again, showing you how amazing an artist Era Terra is, again, you have the opportunity to have it painted up any pretty much way you would like. But the paint apps on mine are incredibly smooth, very lifelike, realistic. Again, he's added nice washes as well as a ton of variation of color moving through, and overall, again, he's given it a really cool flashy look, but at the same time, it absolutely is the coloration that I could expect to see on a sauropod like this. So that as well is really cool. I would look at this and say it's like a big male version, especially with those brighter tones in the face and out on the tail. But again, it is just an amazing looking sculpt, an amazing looking paint job. On top of that, he's got a nice pose as it walks along and is kind of stepping up onto that log. The base down underneath is absolutely awesome as well. Again, there's a lot that has gone into that base to give it a very realistic look when it comes to the earthy area, the texturing as well as the paintwork. We've got vegetation, some rocks. We also have a downed log again, which is what the Patagotitan is stepping onto or stepping over. And you also have the nameplate there as well, which he's done a very good job of even painting out that little area right there to really highlight that name. It definitely stands out. So as a whole, I honestly cannot even tell you when the last time is that I've seen a model as impressive as this. This thing is on another level when it comes to the presence that it has standing here before me. So if you are interested in grabbing one of these for yourself, I will include a link in the description to where you can contact Era Terra on their Instagram account. And if you do not have social media, I can, of course, contact them for you, or at the very least, acquire their email address, actually, and include that in the description as well. I'll try to get you guys that email address so that everyone has the opportunity to order one of these absolutely amazing beasts. So again, one way or another, make sure you pick this up. You will never in a million years regret it. And also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.